The letters FTX were seen just about everywhere. The company allowed investors to buy dozens of virtual currencies, from Bitcoin to even more obscure ones. That is until it all came crumbling down at the hands of the founder, Sam Bankman-Fried. Well, today he was sentenced to 25 years in prison for what is now described as one of the biggest financial frauds the U.S. has ever seen, with customers, lenders, and investors losing over $10 billion.
Sam Bankman-Fried has been arrested in the Bahamas.
Is being held in jail.
Sam Bankman-Fried will be extradited to the U.S.
8 criminal charges.
Bankman-Fried and his co-conspirators stole billions of dollars from FTX customers.
Highly unlikely anyone would recover losses.
And now it was Sam Bankman-Fried's day of reckoning. U.S. District Judge Lewis Kaplan handed down the 25-year sentence at a Manhattan court today.
Any comment on an appeal? Comment on the sentencing? Anything to say to customers and victims here?
There you go.
Bankman-Fried's parents in attendance.
We then ask that you respect us and let us
What are you going through now?
Judge Kaplan rejecting Bankman-Fried's claim that FTX crypto customers did not actually lose money. The judge also finding that the former billionaire, known as SBF, lied during his trial testimony. A jury found the 32-year-old guilty on November 2nd on 7 fraud and conspiracy counts stemming from FTX's 2022 collapse and what prosecutors have called one of the biggest financial frauds in U.S. history.
And it's FTX. It's a safe and easy way to get into crypto.
I don't think so. And I'm never wrong about this stuff. Never.
It's a crypto exchange that had a litany of notable people promoting it.
FTX was just everywhere out of the blue.
FTX is dope.
And they got spokespeople like Tom Brady and Giselle.
Yeah, trade. We're telling everyone.
Not a trade. I'm trading crypto. FTX is the safest and easiest way to buy and sell crypto.
FTX's new CEO, John Ray III, the man who oversaw the liquidation of Enron, told Congress that he's never seen anything like this.
Mr. Ray, you have compared FTX as worse than Enron.
Literally, there's no record keeping whatsoever. Employees would communicate, invoicing and expenses on Slack. They use QuickBooks.
SBF stood today in court and rambled an apology saying this: "My useful life is probably over."
I made a lot of mistakes or things I would give anything to be able to do over again.
Judge Kaplan not buying it, saying Bankman-Fried has shown no remorse.
One of the things that Judge Kaplan said when imposing sentence was that he had a real concern that Bankman-Fried, whenever he concluded his sentence, was in fact a danger to commit another crime like this in the future.
Bankman-Fried, wearing a beige short-sleeved jail t-shirt, acknowledged during 20 minutes of remarks to the judge during the hearing that FTX customers had suffered, and he offered an apology to his former FTX colleagues, but did not admit criminal wrongdoing.
I had around $500,000 in FTX when it went down.
I lost more than 1.5 million.
180K.
$100,000.
Maybe 80,000 plus.
I lost $50,000.
I had just over $2 million.
All the so-called crypto king got was 25 years, a lot less than what federal prosecutors had sought, as they recommended 40 to 50 years behind bars. Bankman-Fried stood with his hands clasped before him as Kaplan read the sentence. He spoke with his defense lawyer before he was led out of the courtroom by members of the U.S. Marshals Service. The sentence marked the culmination of Bankman-Fried's plunge from an ultra-wealthy entrepreneur and major political donor to the biggest trophy to date in a crackdown by U.S. authorities on malfeasance in cryptocurrency markets. Kaplan found that FTX customers lost $10 billion, but SBF is vowing to appeal. This is definitely a story that has both the tech and business world alike talking today. So to chat more about Bankman-Fried's sentencing, we're joined today by tech expert Carmi Levy. Carmi, you were following the sentencing hearing today. What did you think of the final decision that was handed down?
I think Sam Bankman-Fried should be heaving a sigh of relief, because worst case scenario, he might have been spending 110 years in jail. Instead, he was sentenced to 25. So major sentencing by any definition, but not as bad as it could have been. It's a federal sentence. It will be served at a federal penitentiary, which means he'll have access to programs. And if he behaves himself really well, he could be out in 12 and a half years.
So what kind of precedent does this set?
It sends an important message. The judge who handed down the sentence said he wanted to telegraph to anyone else who would consider committing this kind of crime that they are taken very seriously. The punishments are severe, and they will not back down from imposing long sentences to perpetrators. And so this was a precedent-setting case, and he's hoping that it kind of lands in the financial community, that if anyone else thinks they're doing anything like this again, that it better be prepared for a rough ride in the courts.
The Ontario Teachers Pension Fund and celebrity investors like Tom Brady are just some of the high-profile entities affected by Bankman-Fried's scams. Will they ever see their investments again, or are they just out of luck?
There was an interesting postscript to this case, in that the judge ordered a forfeiture of just over $11 billion in assets from Mr. Bankman-Fried, and said that those proceeds could be used to pay back victims. And so there's $8 billion for customers. There's about $3 billion for investors and lenders as well. So assuming that they can get some of this money back, then conceivably some of those who lost money in this massive fraud might see something coming back to them in the months and years to come, but still unclear as to whether that forfeiture order will actually turn into an actual forfeiture if the money is still there.
Crypto can be a volatile industry and clearly very new to investors and regulators. So how can people protect themselves or exercise caution if they do want to dip their toes in?
Well, I mean, it all comes down to ensuring the legitimacy of the individuals and the organizations that you're dealing with. And so in FTX's case, they did a really good job fooling a lot of people into believing that they were a legitimate organization with legitimate protections in place, when in fact that was not the case. And the signs were there, but investors in many cases chose to ignore them because they were so focused on better than average returns. And so I think the key message here is that if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. If it's a fabulous investment opportunity, no one's going to advertise it. They'll keep it to themselves. And so, I think we really do have to reset our expectations, whether it's crypto or not. And unfortunately, in the crypto space, a lot of really shady operators have sort of zoomed in on using unrealistic returns as a way of getting victims in. And then once they're in, it's hard for them to get out. So really, there is no free lunch, and the signs of a fraud are there, but we've got to keep our eyes open to them. Every technology has a bit of a dark side, but we really shouldn't let the fact that criminals have kind of horned in ruin the overall promise of cryptocurrency. It's still there. Even after the FTX debacle, investors, there was a bit of a cooling period, but they've come back into the crypto market. Bitcoin is trading at or near record highs, and certainly, there are more inflows than outflows at this point. So it hasn't killed the market for crypto. The interest is still there, but of course, the traditional finance industry as well as governments still figuring out how we get from here to there, and that will probably take years to figure out.
And I'm sure we'll chat with you many more times as they're doing that. Thank you so much for joining us on Trending Now, Carmi.
Wonderful being with you. Thanks so much for having me.